like a man?
Well, I'm learning so much about what really speaks to the heart of a man. You've probably been to men's conferences yourself before, and I don't know about you, but they seem to pick out topics to preach against sometimes. And when I attended those, I left excited because it was very high energy, but very unsure about how to use what I just learned, what I just heard. Secondly, I often felt leaving more guilty about who I was because I didn't measure up than who I could be. And I guess when I was challenged in 2002 to lead my first men's conference, I dreamed and asked God to show me something different than here's what you need to do, here's what you should do, here's what you ought to do. And one of the first quotes that we begin with is, it's not a requirement to be sick in order to get better. And so I'm not coming to tell you how sick you are as a man. I'm more interested in talking about if God had His way with you, what would your life be like? And so my approach and my calling in this is not to make you a better man. It's not to make you more of the same man you are, but to discover and see and live toward a different man. This different man is the man God designed for me all along, but somehow I wasn't fighting for that. I was just trying to improve me. You understand?
Yeah, I do. And I went to that Fight Like a Man at the Abilene, Kansas event that you hosted. And everything that you've said is exactly right. I was going in with the idea, and I thought, well, I'm doing just fine. My wife and I are married 25 years, and I'm a grandfather now and everything else. And when I went into it, I thought, well, okay, this will be pointing out things that I'm not doing, haven't done well, etc. Wasn't that at all. It was allowing me to do an inner search within myself to decide, am I the best that I can be? Is there more than I can do? And in that event, you shared stories of other people who were very successful, and then they made a mistake, and there were consequences from it. Well, as I'm sitting in that event, and I'm listening to it, I'm saying to myself, doing my own inner evaluation, I can do better. It was fantastic. It was as good of a program as I'd ever been to. And it made a huge difference for us.
Well, I love men to begin with. I love what God intends to happen in the life of a guy. Being the father of 3 sons, it was always a challenge to take my past and the way I was raised and take what I felt God wanted me to duplicate in my home, as well as do something new and different. And part of the different for me was finding a way to intentionally channel the energies and the focus of each of my sons. And that's really what this conference is all about. It's not about fatherhood necessarily, but I took these principles and first applied them in my home. And then I took them and I thought, wow, this made such a difference in my house. I wonder if it would work with grown men, with adult people. And as I took that and began speaking on it and using it in ministry, this approach of leading with God's vision, fighting for God's vision in my life, that began to change the environment of where I was leading. There were 4 focuses, if you remember. We had time for 3 in our conference, but there were 4 focuses in the entire retreat of Fight Like a Man. The first is to challenge a guy to put his energy and his intentionality into God's purpose for him. You remember we talked about the man who lives palms backward. So we said this man who his entire reference of his life is where he is and behind him. And that's his entire identity. If somebody walks in and goes, hey, Doug, I've never met you before, tell me about yourself, a man would have a tendency to go, well, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is what I did, this is who I've been, these are the successes of my life, this is the failures of my life, this is my identity. This is who I married, these are my kids, this is my profession. And it's interesting that when you look at the way God sees us through Scripture, it's nothing like we often just easily go to. It is nothing like, this is who I have created, and therefore that's who I am. So fighting for God's purpose means that instead of seeing myself and identifying myself by who I am and what I've accomplished, I resist the temptation And I see myself through God's eyes, through His purpose and His vision for me, what I'm calling palms forward. And palms forward means that I even define myself by the man I have yet to be, fighting to keep my mind and my focus and my confidence and my identity in the man I have yet to be, not who I am today.